Hi, my name is Justyna Tomaszewska and I am the guide in the most beautiful city in the world. I'm in Łódź, of course, but I'm sure you know it. So today, unfortunately, we can't meet here in the most amazing city in Poland, but thanks to the online, I want to show you rice mill Księży Młyn, one of the most important and most beautiful part of Łódź, and tell you a little bit about the story of my city, because I think it's quite amazing. So it's Sunday, it's beautiful weather, and let's go for a walk. First, the short story of the history of Łódź, because Łódź started to grow in 15th century. In 1423 we've got the city rights, but for true nothing really happened here till 19th century. In 19th century everything changed because of the decision of the very important persons like Stanisław Staszic and Raimund Trębieliński. They were from the Russian part of the country, and they decided to create the industrial center here in Łódź. Why in Łódź? First of all, we've got rivers. It's difficult to believe because now in my city we've got rivers, but all of them, they are going underground. But in 19th century the rivers were very important. We've got rivers very strong and very fast who can help to work all these factories here in the city. So we've got rivers, we've got forest. Even today, in the border of Łódź, we've got the biggest forest in Europe. It's called Łagiewnicki. We've got also people, because in 19th century, Łódź was the old town and neighborhood, but Bałuty, Górna and many other districts, they were separate villages and they were start to be part of the city later. So we've got rivers, we've got forest, and we've got people. The most important things to create this, what the Łódź is the most famous, I mean the red brick, the cotton, and of course the factory, all this industrial part of Łódź. It's difficult to believe because now we doesn't have even the factory who produced something like the cotton. But in all these buildings there are new life, because very important word in my beautiful town is revitalization. So if you heard about very good example of revitalization, I'm sure you heard about Łódź, because we've got Manufaktura, who is the old factory of Izrael Poznański and now very famous city center and the shopping mall. We've got Księży Młyn, and you see it in a moment, because now it's the time when everything happened here, and many other factories and important things. Łódź is famous also because of amazing events like the festivals, like the cinema life, but you heard it in another movie about the city from another great guide, and you've got great people. This is the most important in Łódź. People and this amazing atmosphere, amazing climate of the industrial city. So let's go for a walk. Karol Scheibler, he was the factory owner who came here from Germany and started to make amazing business. Because you need to know that Łódź was called, and is today, the city of four culture, because the German, the Russian, the Jewish and the Polish people, they built our city in 19th century. The richest, of course, was the Germans. They were also the bosses, the directors of the factory. And Karol Scheibler, the owner of this part of the city, he was number one. He was absolutely the king of Łódź. He can do anything, and his power was enormous. He created here the little town called also the Red Town, the Red City, and the factory city, because, and also what is funny, we called very often for this place the Polish Manchester, because it's created, like you can see, for the red brick. For example, this is the old storage, today one of the greatest coffee and pastry, and also here is the bookshop. We've got here the buildings, because Karol Scheibler, he create the city, he create here everything. what was needed for the people who worked in Łódź and worked in his factory. This was the 15% of the old city, so it was something. Of course, I told you in the beginning about rivers, so here was the river called Jasień, one of the strongest and most important river who worked, thanks to this river, worked here a lot of the factories. So now we are going through the street called Księży Młyn, like the part of the city, and you can see from the left and right the little houses we called in Łódź for these places family, because here lived the people from the factories, the factory workers. And on my right side, this one, this building is after revitalization, and this on the left is before. So you can see here on your own eyes this change, what has happened here now. The factory by Karol Scheibler produced, of course, cotton, and it was the biggest factory in this part of Europe. And he also gave to the Łódź a lot of things, like he gave some money for churches, synagogues, ultra-Orthodox cathedral, and not only, but also schools, hospitals, kindergartens, and beautiful buildings in the middle of the city, like on Piotrkowska Street. Today, this part of the city, in my opinion, is one of the most popular, because we've got here unusual climate, unusual atmosphere. You can, if you've got a little bit imagination, you can feel here like in 19th century. I want to recommend you one very important movie about my city. I mean, of course, Promised Land. The Promised Land by Andrzej Wajda. This is the movie about four friends, friends who got nothing and they build a factory. And a lot of scene is happening here on the Price Mill. So you can see it, maybe you recognize some places from the movie after our short walk. And this is it. This is the factory. It's quite big and quite impressive. It looks like it seems like the castle, because it was also the idea of the architects who built all these buildings. Because imagine that here works thousands of machines. It's quite loud, and from the windows is going out the cotton dust, and the place looks like, you can say it, hell. And the people were scared, and they even think that maybe Karol Scheibler, because for them it was something strange that he was so rich, they've got nothing, and he was like the king, so they think that maybe he is a devil. He's got the power like a devil. So they were scared of him. He was very, very scary man, and very cruel, because if somebody worked bad, there was no mercy, no work in the factory, no life in Łódź. So you can see the factory. Today there are lofts. Oh, look at this. This is beautiful Art Nouveau. And of course, the red brick. Today in this building there are lofts. This is like the connection of the industrial architect and modern architect, and you can buy here apartment and live in the old factory. And I was told you about the Karol Scheibler because he was the king of the city, and he can literally everything here in the city. If someone works bad or got a bad day, and Karol Scheibler have no mercy, no work in the factory, and even no work in all city. So the people were scared of him. He, after his death, the business goes in the hands of his son. He got a very original name, Karol Scheibler Jr. And he later, of course, after 1905, after the revolution, everything changed here. And during the Second World War, the factory works for the Reich, for the Germans. Now we jump into another part of the Księży Młyn, and here you can see the palace of the Karol Scheibler, the owner of this part of the district, and beautiful trees, because the autumn in Poland is the most beautiful. And today in this palace is the Museum of the Cinematography, with the great posters, artifacts dedicated to the movie, cinema, and also my favorite part of the museum about the cartoons who was created in Łódź and in Poland. And here is also next to the palace the film school and also a beautiful park who Karol Scheibler created for the people who work for him. So as you can see, he was quite clever businessman, but Księży Młyn is not only what we've got beautiful here in the city. Let's go and see something. We've got the monument of the unicorn and the unicorn stable. We've got also amazing examples of Art Nouveau architecture. And now we are on the most important street in Łódź. It's Piotrkowska. You can see how beautiful buildings are on this street. We've got also the benches with the very famous people who are from our city. So this is Julian Tuwim. He was a poet from Łódź, of course, and he is very famous. All the children and all adults know his poems. He is like one of the icons in Poland, and for luck you need to do something like this. This is the place where is the city councillor, the mayor of Łódź and voivodeship. So one of the most beautiful buildings in the old palace of Juliusz Heinzel, the factory owner. It's very common in Łódź that we've got the in old palaces, factories, we've got the new places, very beautiful and very amazing. So you can see also today totally different weather than last time, because we've got here typical Polish autumn. One day is beautiful and another is grey without sun, and we are fighting about the day. So the flags are here because we are the day before the Independence Day in Poland. So that's why we've got the Polish flags on the streets. Look at this. And of course, with all these buildings, we've got amazing story. So this is what I like in Łódź the most. Of course, the stories, the people I want to show you today. Also one of the most important things here. This is the monument of the citizens of our city. So everybody can bought a brick with his names, and you are for the end of the history, the part of Łódź. It costs only 1 złotych, and a lot of people have got something like this. Here in this spot we've got also famous citizens of the city. Okay. And this is like the Wall of Fame. So we've got here, like, for example, I'll show you the actor Aleksander Bardini, the writer. He was the Karol Arnstadt was the factory owner. We've got the people who are connected with theater, but also with sport, and politicians like also. This is factory Abram Koplowicz. He was the poet from a ghetto. So this is also very good lessons of the history. This is Jan Karski, the man who fight during the Second World War about the freedom of everybody. And now we just go to one of the yards here, so you can see how the real life looks in Łódź, on Piotrkowska Street. This is one of my favorite places, of course, and I very often came here with the group. So you had typical very big building on the left and right side. We call for it well. This is like a typical yard in Łódź, and we are going here. Normally in 19th century here lives a lot of people, like the Jewish people, Russian, Polish and German. They live together here, and that's why even today we are calling to Łódź the city of four culture, because all of these people, they live together side by side in the yards like that. And maybe, this was life. It doesn't mean they loved each other. They were neighbors, friends, enemies, business partners, and so on. And we are going here, and look at that. In the middle of the yard we've got something like that. This is the old storage, and it was created in 19th century in the neo-Renaissance style. Used to he was an art gallery. Now it's empty and it's waiting for the new life, so maybe you've got the idea what we can do here. And a lot of people, even in Łódź, they doesn't have an idea about this place, and it looks quite amazing. So we are on the Piotrkowska again, so you can see Łódź is a great city for bikers. They are flat, very comfortable, so even in the bad weather we've got a lot of bikers here. And I want to show you two amazing palaces. The old one, it was in the hand of the Kinderman family, and they create amazing mosaic on the top. And this building, the yellow one, was created later, so you can see here, thanks to the artist in this graffito technique. Here is on the top the road of the cotton from the field through the ships to the shops, factories, and to the clients. So we've got here also things connected with this cotton story of the city. And here is another bench with Władysław Reymont. He was the writer, and he writes one of the most important books for our city, The Promised Land. This is the story of three friends who've got nothing, and they open the factory. Maybe you know some movie, the same title, by Andrzej Wajda. Very, very good. So if you are interested in the story of the city, you can see it because it's amazing. One of my favorite movies in the world. And now we are going to the off Piotrkowska Center. You can see here is a lot of street art. This is the old factory of the Ramish, and for many years here is like the center of youth with great restaurants, pubs, and coffee shops. Everything is this red brick style with great climate, and it's one of the most popular places during the summer and no pandemia, of course, time. And it's one of my favorite, of course. I think you noticed that I like my city. So I hope we've got a chance to meet here live, not only via internet. And thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoy it.